on to The Swab with Georgie Carroll. We all know nurses have the best stories, so why don't you come have a listen? Good day and welcome down to The Swab. Today we have a guest all the way over the pond, over a few ponds, over a big ocean. He's originally from Australia and he's landed himself in Tucson, Arizona. Would you welcome to The Swab as Pino. Good day, Del. How are you going?
G'day, Georgie. Thanks for having me.
Oh, the full disclosure to any of the listeners, we're going to be giggling a bit because we've just done a good 10 minutes of chatting without recording anything because I forgot to press. I don't think I forgot. I don't know what happened. It just didn't record.
A tech issue. We were just getting to know each other.
Well, we didn't kill anyone. So,
that's it.
You know, I'll tell you a little bit about Az anyway, seeing as I've had a 10-minute chat. I know a little bit about him already, which is
good. A little more.
You've been in America for 3 years. I feel like I'm introducing you on a dating site now. You've been in America for 3 years after working in WA as a nurse since 2014. And
that's right.
And you've got a little 3-week-old baby in the house somewhere.
Absolutely. So my wife is trying to keep her quiet, so hopefully there's no screams or any little noises coming from her.
Well, it's pretty easy at that age. You just stick a tit in it, don't you? And
pretty much.
You could make it latch on you. It wouldn't matter. Congratulations on your baby for a start.
Thank you. We're really excited. It's a big adjustment. We have a little American here, so I never would have envisioned having a little American citizen, but this is where I am at the moment, me and my wife. Yeah, we're just embracing it and we're going with it. And then we will go through the process of getting her to become Australian. So
we need more Australians. Bring her back.
That's the plan. That is a plan.
You moved to America because, talk me through that.
And I mean, that's the key question. Everyone asks me that over here. Why the heck would you move to Tucson? You know, I think for me, it was, I just wanted something different. So me and my wife were kind of at that point in our careers where we had a couple of years experience under our belt. She's not a nurse, just, for anyone concerned.
What is she, apart from her fabulous mother? What is she at the minute?
So she managed to get a job in a startup company, like a software-based company that works in some like apartment complex stuff. Yeah. So the US-based job that she's doing really well in. So it's great for her. Yeah. So that's what she does when she's not a mum.
So you needed a change?
We needed a change. We wanted a lifestyle change. We wanted to mix it up a little bit. And we kind of did. We did look at the UK initially, but that was very cliche. A lot of Aussies go over there.
Well, you dodged a bullet. Even though there's more guns in America, you did dodge a bullet by not going in the NHS.
I thought we'd just mix it up a little bit, and it was harder to get in here. So I thought, it's a bit of a challenge. Let's go to a non-Commonwealth country and see what that looks like.
Yeah.
And neither of us had really been or traveled here. So we thought, let's explore this continent over a period of time. So that's kind of what led us to, the adventure, the interest. We didn't just want to do like a 6-week trip over here. We wanted to kind of live the experience. Which is great. We've loved it. There's highs, there's been the lows, but it's been fantastic.
in terms of anyone who's thinking of going working in America in healthcare, what's the good things? What's the draws? What's the bad things?
Sure. I think there's definitely an adjustment process, and you kind of need to give it that grace, right? So it took me a little while just to kind of process how things operated differently. Obviously the whole healthcare system, the degree of patients, and then I'm in a place.
Yeah, well, let's look into that in a minute.
We will.
I'm so baffled by it. Go on.
But pros wise, there is some really good employment opportunities. The demand here is phenomenal. Prior to me coming on, there was 80,000 nurses in demand, and I would imagine that figure is far higher after COVID. So there's plenty of opportunities because with that demand, they obviously are willing to pay for your services. So you've got pretty much job security anywhere.
Don't tell me what you earn, but but what are we talking? Is it what percentage-wise on top of Australia are you getting? You don't know.
Now I'm trying to remember back, but I think what the difference is, it's not really in the annual kind of like that we're looking at. I think the dollar value is not too different. It's the bonuses. So when they're desperate, so at the moment, the hospital I'm at, they're desperate for nurses to work. So they'll give an extra $500 a shift. They're like, if you can work this, there's an extra $500 bonus. Yeah. So that's kind of where you can like make that extra dollar is by signing up some of those extras and harder. Exactly. So, and then, you can negotiate your wage as well, which is just unheard of. I don't do that in the public health system. It doesn't work. So I was able to negotiate a wage, and the director that I was working with said, "Oh," she kind of ballparked it, and she said, "Oh, the earlier part of this number," and I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna shoot high," and it was HR's decision, so I kind of shot high, and then we met in between, and it was far higher than what she wanted, so it was good to be able to.
I feel like because I'm not madly a business person, I'd need some kind of
No.
I'd like need some Moneyball person. I'd need somebody, just doing me negotiating, like an agent, a nurse.
Everything's on a podcast, Georgie, and I listened to a podcast that taught me how to negotiate, and I did that, and I kind of drew the hard line, and I said, "This is my worth. This is what I bring to the team. This is
I
my
take it you don't have unions then.
Well, they do, but not like Australia. Not like Australia. They the hospital got unionized while I was there, and there was like a split. Like, I don't want it to be unionized. I do want it to be unionized, and I don't know how to perceive that, because my opinion of a union is very, very different. Coming from Western Australia,
I love a union.
Fantastic union. I credited them for that 14% rise that we got before I started my nursing. So, they were fantastic. But over here, you're either for them or you're against them. California is very pro-union, and they have very good nursing ratios, and their nursing environment is fantastic. It also pays well, but California.
But I've heard the holidays are rubbish.
Yeah, that's pretty true, to be honest.
Did you get paternity leave?
No, I didn't. No, not at all. That's just it's not really a thing. But typically, paid time off is about 2 weeks a year. And then the longer you're at a hospital, it increases. But I'm never in a place long enough to earn that, I kind of like to keep moving and do different things. Yeah, so paternity leave is not really a thing. Maternity leave is very limited over here. So my wife is in a hybrid company with her job. Yeah. So because it's partly Australian, she gets the luxury of the Australian maternity leave. So we have to be delicate how we talk about that, because it's very, very generous compared to what the Americans get. One of my nursing friends on the similar contract to me, I think it was 12 weeks that she managed, but she had to kind of drop down. No. It was a lot of it was very, very limited with pay.
I would say the majority. I don't say you get paid the whole time, but the majority in Australia seem to take a year. So whatever it is in their world that's let them do that, whether it be work and anything up until the baby's 5, pretty much the shift work has to fit in around your life.
Right. Here. It's not the case over here. It's very different. So, I think further down the track, looking down the big picture, ultimately the lifestyle in Australia is appealing. Yeah. When you weigh up kind of job and stuff like that, pros and cons, I think the lifestyle in Australia is right up our alley. Cool. We have a better work-life balance in Australia, that is for sure.
I noticed that when I came from England. I was like, I couldn't believe that people could get every Wednesday off to play netball. Yeah. I was like, that was unheard of.
Yep, the amount of leave is pretty generous, to be honest. As a shift worker, I think I could get up to 6 weeks when you clustered it all together, all these different parts that you could get. But here it's just not as much.
You can say piss off to any of these questions. Did it cost you money to have a baby?
Yes. So, the complex thing about healthcare here is no one can tell you the dollar price before you have a service, right? You can't say, quote me how much this baby is going to cost. You wait.
They could charge by the kilo, couldn't they, with babies?
They could, and lucky she was a little one, so she's quite compact, a few pounds, here. Yeah. But no one can give you the price. So I think we're still waiting for the bill to come in, because it goes off to a billing department, and then you later get the bill. It goes to your insurance. So there's a lot of hands that go into it. Sometimes it's about a month before you receive a bill.
And then if the bill's big, you'll have to stick her in pageants.
Yeah, you're going to have to get the money back, but there's options here. Again, there's options here. So there's ways of monetizing the child here, I suppose, but I don't think it'll get to that. I think my wife had very good insurance that she was able to put her on, and she's still navigating that, getting the certificate, making sure she's properly on there. But they
and I suppose
a 60-day window.
I suppose a good way of, so we've talked about working in the system, and how good the system is would be the next question. Given what you know about humans and what they require of a health system, are you happy that your baby is going to grow up in America, or you think Australian hospitals would be a better serving?
Oh, that's a good question. And, I've not looked at that from that angle, Georgie, because I'm just hoping she doesn't have to go down the hospital system.
No, she'll be fine. She won't even
exactly.
get braces.
I've looked at it from the route of education, and that's where I chose Australia. But I've not looked at it from healthcare.
You look
Yeah,
healthy. She'll be
I mean,
healthy.
yeah, we're both healthy, and I think she's going to be pretty healthy too.
Yeah.
Um, I'm probably going to be biased and go with Australia, and I think because it's a
Yeah.
little bit more clear cut, and it's an expensive system here. It's one of the most expensive in the world. That's what they're known for because insurance has come into play, right? Negotiations go so like doctors, providers, all those who can actually see a patient can kind of set their own rate. So the rates go up, and then that gets transferred onto insurance, right? So
Yeah.
eventually your rates kind of go up a little bit.
I wonder if I'd be any more responsible for my own health if I knew I had to pay for it when it goes wrong.
Well, I question that too. I worked in emergency, and we would get patients come into emergency where you're like, you're not paying for anything. Do you have a value on healthcare? But I still see that here. So
Yeah, I didn't think of Americans. Yeah, there's lots of incredibly fit ones, but they're not the. Yeah, they've got a lot of bad statistics too.
yes, yep, exactly.
And you positioned yourself. You're doing a doctorate.
Yeah. So I'm doing a doctorate in nursing practice. It's basically to be an MP. So the program that I'm on,
Is that a nurse
again,
practitioner?
yeah, exactly. It's just a fancy way of saying that, to be honest. We do the master's level in Australia, and I'd kind of toiled with the idea in Australia, but our system's not as established with NPs. But the program here was from a bachelor's degree through to a doctorate in 2.5 years, and I thought that'd be a great decision to do. If I don't do that, I'm going to regret it.
Yeah.
So I'm at that point now where I've got 5 months left, and I'm itching for it to be over, and I'm itching for my personal time to come back to me.
Yeah.
But I've got a good peer group that I'm with, and I'm at that point where it's getting interesting, where I'm getting to make clinical decisions and working with a psychiatrist this semester with adolescents, and there's just some interesting pathology that I'm seeing.
Psychiatry in adolescence.
Yeah, teenage boys typically. Sometimes
I've got two of them.
a teenage girl. Yeah. I bet they keep you busy.
Oh, aren't they? I'm not necessarily busy. I'm frustrated, is what I am. I love them very much, but you can't trust them as far as you can throw them.
Yeah. And I see that in the inpatient psych unit, and I'm like, okay, was that a rational decision
No.
based on that reaction with your parents, and now you're here in a psychiatric unit? I don't know if it was. Is there an issue? Is there something we need to address?
I watch a lot of Dr. Phil as well. It's never a teenage issue. It's always a family issue.
And that's what I'm learning too. Yeah, the amount of reports that I have to tell the social worker, let's do a family meeting, or let's get the department involved. Something's not right here.
You know what's hard with teenagers? Because I don't think mine are diagnosable in any way or need medication. But they're so often you're like, is that personality, or is that a flaw, or is that a disease? What is going on with you?
And they're still developing, and that's the funny thing. The psychiatrist that I said was working with, he said the other day, he goes, yeah, one of the patients said to me the other day, don't you realize that every teenager is bipolar during their teenage years at least once?
Yes.
And he was using that as a teachable moment with me, this psychiatrist. And he said, think about it. And he stared at me like a real psychiatrist would. And I said, yeah, I suppose you're right. The highs, the lows, the irritability.
Yeah, I used to think about death a lot when I was a teenager. Right? It's really sad.
That underdeveloped frontal lobe, like all of that comes into play. And you have to, and the other day I was looking at a patient, and I was like trying to work out what the patient was here for. And I was taking like the whole hour of the assessment because I'm just like, why are you actually here? And I had to just stop pathologizing it and saying, a lot of this is actually normative. Like it's very normative behavior, and I think you just made an impulsive decision. You don't have a history. And I had to rationalize that with the psychiatrist. I was like, I'm sorry, I don't think this person has a diagnosis.
Yeah, but, I was a huge liar between 16 and 20. Don't know what that was.
Oh, wow.
Huge lies.
Wow.
And it was always, and it wasn't lies to make me, it wasn't like I joined a band or anything. There were things like...
What kind of lies were they?
So Mum would go, did you have a nice time at the cinema? And I go, yeah, until somebody got stabbed.
What was the secondary gain that you were going to get out of that? A bit of sympathy?
And the weird thing is, I absolutely remember thinking, you can't prove whether that happened or not in my head. I would be like, how would you even know if I'm lying? And then occasionally someone would pull me for it, and I'd be like,
oh, wow.
No, it did happen. And they go, well, it wasn't on the news. Yes, because we asked for it not to be on the news.
we as a collective, the people, the teenagers and other people asked for it not to go on the news, and they respected that.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
that's deep. You've
So yeah,
outgrown that now.
teenage psychiatry. That would be.
It's a little different.
I'm sure you're more uh, remedial with it, but I would be very voyeuristic. I think I would just like listening to the stories. I think that would
And
be my thing.
I think that's what's good about it as well is I've had a preceptor say to me, I love psychiatry because you can ask questions and just pretend it's part of the job, but it's actually you're just curious. And I am like, oh, why'd you go and make that decision? Or why'd you go and do that? Or, just asking all those kind of deeper
Yeah,
analytical questions like, is it going to get me to the goal? No, but it paints a picture.
yeah,
So
yeah.
it kind of gives me some insight into decision making and stuff. But part of it is interest as well. And that's abnormal behavior has been an interest of mine for such a long time. So
Yeah.
it's kind of natural that I went that pathway.
Yeah, so you're in psychiatry. Now, this is not in any way, let me make it very clear, and I'll shout this from the rooftops. Having a mental health issue or a psychiatric disorder does not make anybody violent, but it can change impulse and it can change lots of other things, and it can be a very frustrating system to be in.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. A very frustrating system.
I find that it's something that I've struggled with in hospital here, just the violence that
You're
can
right.
come by somebody who's already really on the brink of frustration and at the limits of all their coping mechanisms, to then be stuck in an emergency department with bright lights, not allowed a cigarette, not allowed to phone anyone. It's just,
Right. Absolutely. And it is similar. A lot of the places are, we have main emergency departments that will process people and help them find the right place, right? But we do have psychiatric specific facilities that have like an emergency department.
so you can, if you've got a family member with, or the police have somebody who's clearly struggling with a psychiatric or a mental health issue,
Yeah, yeah,
they
yeah.
can take them straight to a mental health hospital.
Yeah, so in this facility, like in this town, the city that I'm in, we have one that's attached to the university, and it's a crisis emergency department, and they can self-present to that, and that's psychiatric specific. And then they can either get admitted through that process, or they can get transferred to another facility, depending on where beds are available,
Well,
insurance, and all that
tell
sort of
you what,
stuff.
Az, that's a bloody lottery if you don't understand psychiatry. Uh,
Yeah,
I sit there and I have no idea who's going to stay and who's going to get sent home. I don't know how you do it.
exactly,
Somebody can be sat
exactly.
there quiet as a lamb, not saying much, and they get to stay. Somebody else can be saying they're going to do things and they get to go home, and I don't know how you work it.
And you know what it is? I think the difference is, as a nurse on the floor, you don't get time to look through the history, but having a good look through the history, speaking to family, making a good assessment, finding out what kind of support they have in the community, professional and not professional as well, like that kind of helps make that decision. But yeah, I used to remember when I worked in an emergency department, I'm like, that guy was very psychotic. We just gave him some meds, and now he's allowed to walk out of here. Like, I thought we were going to admit him. I know him from the psych unit, but he wasn't. At that time, he wasn't admittable. So, that whole decision-making criteria, and here you have to be particularly careful because access to weapons is a lot more
I was
common.
going to say, like, even though I didn't know if that was an issue or if I know that the guns are a thing, but as an Australian and a British nurse, I can't
Yes.
imagine what I would do if I was going through somebody's valuables when they came in and I found a gun or two.
Exactly. And thank God it doesn't happen very often. I haven't had that experience. And a lot of the time it's behavioral health techs that will do the property search, but we have found like bullets in there. I think there has been a couple of people, oh, there was a gun in there, but a lot of the time that isn't the case. And we're very, very thankful for that.
Yeah.
But that is the risk being here. There's no metal detectors in our facility. I haven't seen anyone get, in Australia, we had
Because in
had the
Arizona,
wand
anybody can have one. You don't need a license, do you?
in my state. So it varies by state, but my state, you don't need a license. You need a license for a car, but not for a gun. And it's a concealed carry state, which means legally you can conceal a gun on you. It doesn't have to be visible. It
Can I
can be
ask if you
concealed
got
in
one?
a bag. No, no. I've I think it's a contentious matter as an Australian, and probably for someone that like yourself, when you come from a society without. So me and the wife were very uncomfortable, and in the first couple of weeks, she picked me up, right, and there was a shooting across the road from my workplace, and she was out the front of the hospital
Ooh.
with the dog, and no one got hurt. It was just like a gang fight, and someone fired a gun. As dismissive as we can be about that, and she, it changed because the hospital that I'm in is not in a great side of town, so it is a little rough. So we kind of changed how I would get collected from the hospital, maybe wait for me to call. So I will walk straight to the car. You don't have to wait in this terrible area. But, that is the risk.
Tank.
Buy a tank. But yeah, we're opposed to owning a firearm, but we bit the bullet and kind of went out shooting with some army friends over here, some military friends, because we wanted to kind of get over that fear. And they brought out all the big guns, and it was just out in the desert somewhere. And
that'd be fun.
Real cowboy, real wild. And but it was fun. It was fun to kind of get over that fear a little bit, and military personnel who are very well trained, who are like guiding us. But yeah, we have absolutely no desire of owning a firearm of our own. For me, it's just...
I don't think it would make my family any safer if I had one.
I think it'd be the opposite for me. I don't want to handle a firearm under duress. That's just not how I operate. I'd probably try and
teenagers. I'm at the point where we have to hide cigarettes and booze and everything, just because we've got all these adult vices that we don't want the kids having. I think a gun knocking around would be helpful.
You say that, Georgie, but for the listeners, let me paint a picture. There's a couple of cases of beer in the background, so I don't know how well your hiding is, and I can see the wine there, and I saw your teenagers walking around.
Oh no, that's hard, isn't it? He's not. Yeah, they're going to be fine on a little bit of beer.
You're talking about the hard liquor. Okay, I'm glad we clarified that.
I'm gonna tell you a story about at the start of lockdowns. That my older one is very sporty, so that's where his self-esteem comes from. It's where his connections are, And at the start of lockdown, when they couldn't do any, I was so paranoid that where's all this energy gonna go? So I was hiding the cigarettes and the beer, and he's never had a girlfriend at the time, but I'd got condoms in the house just in case any of his friends needed them, and just to normalise them. And one day he'd gone out very early in the morning, and the whole box of condoms had gone missing, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? I was like, you don't need 12, you don't need 12, right? Anyway. I found a text messaging thing on his iPad between him and a friend at 4 a.m. It was one of his friends who was going to do it.
Wow.
Or he thought he was. His friend, looking at the chat, probably wasn't happening. It was just bravado. But they were frightened that anyone would see them handing over the condoms. So the pair of them cycled 40 kilometres to Henley Beach to do the handover.
Well, they got plenty of exercise. That's what you're concerned about.
Anyone look? We'll have to go all the way. So yeah, that's what. Yeah, they cycled.
Oh my goodness.
40 kilometers there, 40 kilometers back. At 6 a.m, they went out so that we couldn't stop them because it was lockdowns and they weren't meant to leave the house.
But they got their exercise, and that's the key part of that, right?
That's all they got though, because his mate had put something like, because my son went, "Who are you doing it with?" And he went, "Oh, there's 2 potentials, and I bought one of them a necklace." Like, Jesus, I might do it for a necklace. Oh, this is so cool. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love talking to nurses from all over. We could talk forever, but the episode has a time limit. And I already made you do 10 minutes more because I forgot to press record.
I hope it helps clarify because, like I said, I heard a couple of your guests say, I don't know how it is in the States, and I hope that kind of paints
a little bit clear. I think we've assessed we don't get much holiday, but we do get a lot of money to spend when we are on holiday. You have to be able to negotiate. There's only one gun.
And I think the other thing is really the different level of providers, right? So we have nurse practitioners, we have physician's assistants, and then we have doctors and midwives or even providers. So just these different tiers that we don't always have in Australia that don't exist. And they come and kind of just consult just briefly and then you don't always see them. You have to call them up again. I was used to having a psychiatrist and some, registrars under them, and they were on the unit, the whole day. That's not the case. So little things like that where, provider and how it's delivered is a little different. But again, there's all these different tiers and it helps reduce some of that cost as well because you're not paying for the doctor for everything.
Yeah, and it gives a bit more autonomy. And for those of you that like climbing, it sounds good. I never want to do anything. Mandatory training. That's enough of my hours lost to education. But you're right there at the beginning with your beautiful 3-week-old baby, and you've got a world to build for that family. So anyway, just gorgeous speaking to you. Sniff that little one's head for me. I love the smell of newborns' heads.
Yes. Yeah.
And thank you so much for speaking.
Thank you, Georgie. Appreciate it.
You've been listening to The Swab with Georgie Carroll. That's me podcast, but I also have live comedy shows too, and I've written a book called Off the Charts. If you want to know more about those things, please hit me up on my socials. I've got a Facebook called Georgie Carroll, and I've got an Insta called Nurse Georgie Carroll. I've got a website called georgiecarroll.com. Also, if you've got anybody that you think would be a great guest on The Swab, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, and that's all for today from The Swab.